Thank you, Shankar. I don't think I'm going to show you any slides. I will just try to make some points. That's okay. I'll just try to make it. Remember, I teach medical students, okay? And I do research. I've been doing it for 32 years at the University of Illinois. First thing I learned is that if you are going to, remember this session is about making drugs. The two previous speakers talked about botanical drugs, next program and all that. First thing I'll remind you that if you are really going to make a drug, let's say an anti-cancer drug, you shouldn't start by saying I'm going to make an anti-cancer drug. I didn't, but as Shankar said, I have set up two, tiny companies, one in Chicago and one in Ahmedabad in India, and we are trying to make drugs that nobody has. Nobody. So you would say, really? What is it? So first thing I will remind you that, remember, everybody said, oh, you are going to make drugs. You have to have targets. Then you have to have hits using high throughput screening. Then you have to have lead compounds. Then you take them to the clinical trials and all that, and all these things take a lot of time, lot of money, and all that. So the average cost of a drug is estimated at $1 billion. There is another way of making drugs. Antibiotics. Remember antibiotics? Bacteria make it for you. You don't have to look for targets, you don't have to look for hits, you don't have to look for lead compounds. It's there. All you have to do is to know how to look. But so what kind of bacteria make antibiotics? Only soil bacteria make antibiotics. You know why? Because the type of bacteria that make antibiotics are very slow growing, called actinomycetes. In nature, if you are growing, if your habitat is soil and you have fast growing bacteria, they are going to overgrow you. You will have no chance. So nature, which favors diversity, endowed on these slow growing actinomycetes the capability to produce antibiotics, to keep their soil dwelling neighbors in check. And we have a huge antibiotic industry. As I said, I didn't start to make any kinds of drugs. I had no intention. But I happened to find out that there are certain bacteria that live in the body for years. Tuberculosis. If you have Mycobacterium tuberculosis in your body, it can be in your body when you are 10-year-old, and you won't get tuberculosis until you are 60 years old. I was working with a bacterium called Pseudomonas aeruginosa, Shankar just passingly mentioned, which can infect cystic fibrosis patients, which was what I was studying. When the patient, these are little kids, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, and it would be with the patient called chronic infections until the patient dies, maybe when the patient is 18, 20. And the bug will live there slowly, without doing any harm, but it just wants to have a long-term residence in the human body. And the bug, when it defeats the immune system and sets itself up, and just set up for a long-term residence, there comes a cancer. And the first thing you know is that the cancer can kill the host. And this bacterium just spent enormous energy and effort to get into my body, to have what's called a biofilm, very slow growing, no harm to the host, just living there in symbiosis. And the bug sees that the host is going to die. And if the host is dead, the bacteria have no sanctuary. Bacteria are the first life form to arrive on Earth more than 3 billion years ago. They became our organelle called mitochondria. They know how our body works. They know how cancer cells grow. So when the bacteria have just established itself or themselves in our body, and there are external invaders, it doesn't have to be cancer, it could be a virus such as HIV/AIDS, for example, or a parasite such as the malarial parasite that can come and kill the host. The bacteria don't like it. So they, for their own reason, just like they produce antibiotics, they produce proteins that will attack cancer cells. And unlike the pharmaceutical industry that makes all these anti-cancer drugs, they have a target, a single target. If you inhibit the single target, raise your hand when you want me to stop, and I'll stop. Wait. Well, you are like my MD students, so I'm trying to tell you how to develop drug. And the way you will develop drug, nobody will. Because remember the pharmaceutical industry, I told you, they're looking for a target. Then they have an inhibitor. That inhibitor will only inhibit that target. Cancer cells, like malarial, parasite, HIV, it's very small. If you inhibit a single target, they will change the target and become drug resistant. It also imparts great deal of toxicity. But remember what I said, if the bacteria are going to produce a protein which is intended to inhibit the growth of multiple invaders of the body, because the bacteria don't want them to while they are resident. Bacteria have evolutionary wisdom. So they design the protein in such a way that the protein will very preferentially enter into cancer cell and inhibit cancer cell growth by interfering in multiple pathways. Cell signaling, tumor suppressor elevation, what's called angiogenesis. It will inhibit angiogenesis so that the cancer cells can grow. So when we found that out, we said, wow, this protein also inhibits HIV/AIDS virus and the malarial parasite. A single protein will inhibit various forms of cancer, HIV/AIDS virus. Those are the three we checked, just to find out. Okay. So you'd say, Mr. Chakraborty, this is all fine and dandy. Will it work like antibiotics? So we formed a company in Chicago, 2002, 2003. The company raised $16 million, took it to phase 1 human clinical trial, NCI, your next program, used to be called RAID program. Thanks to NCI, did the preclinical, no toxicity. Remember, the bacteria designed them so that they would work within the human body. They don't want the protein to be toxic. The protein looks like immunoglobulins. So the immune system looks at it and says, oh, it's one of us. No immunogenicity. So the upshot of the preclinical was no immunogenicity in monkeys, cats, dogs, and all that, and no toxicity. So we went to the FDA, and the FDA said, oh, it's a protein, don't use a protein, use a peptide, because that's a drug that you can chemically synthesize. So we said, okay, that's what FDA says. We had a 28 amino acid chemically synthesized protein called peptide called P28. FDA said if you are going to do phase 1, which is basically toxicity study, do it in cancer patients where no drug is working. So CTG Therapeutics Inc., the company we set up, according to FDA guidelines, tried it in 15 stage 4 cancer patients with refractory metastatic tumors. They have an average life expectancy of 8 to 10 weeks. So there were 5 doses from very tiny 0.1 milligram per kg to 4.1 milligram per kg of body weight. Upshot is that out of 15 patients, 6 are still alive, 9 died over the course of 2 years. 6 out of 6, 4 had partial regression of the tumors, 2 had complete regression of the tumors. These are tumors that were refractory to all conventional drugs. Because the product is so different. Nobody ever looked for protein drugs from bacteria. So the 2 patients, one melanoma and one sarcoma, but the tumors completely regressed. These were refractory to all conventional drugs. You say, what kind of tumors are these that could be so sensitive to this peptide, a single peptide? So you see, that opens a lot of questions like Is it those two, the genome of those two patients, or the nature of the tumor? Can you do microarray? Can you do proteomics? Can you do? There are all kinds of things. But the important thing then is antibiotics. There are many antibiotics. So I asked myself when I found this, that if this protein is produced by bacterium that lives in the body for a long time, and if there are many, many antibiotics, can I find another one? Can I find many more? Like, after penicillin came streptomycin, then came clonfenicol, then came erythromycin, streptomycin, So I went to India and started this company called Amrita Therapeutics, looked for just another protein, found it. I have a peptide similar to P28, 30 amino acid peptide with known anti-cancer activity, and we are now trying to find out if this peptide, which is very different than P28, will actually work in the real world. So what's the moral? The moral of the story is that if I started by making another anti-cancer drugs, I would do what everybody else was doing. I would say, oh, I got to have a new target. If it's not a receptor tyrosine kinase or, vascular endothelial growth factor, I'll find another one. Do all this high throughput screening, go through all this. But see, I was not looking for this. I have no interest in anti-cancer drugs, no interest in malaria, parasite, no interest in HIV/AIDS. But because I was doing basic research in the university, I came up with something that I hope will, it's too early, so it did well in phase 1. We'll see what it does in phase 2 and phase 3 and so on, and then I'll see whether my Indian company's product will do as well, if not better. But the point of all this is, particularly if there are youngsters or students, just to say that, basic research is very important, because you will never know where your research will lead to. And I think that's where I would stop. And I hope, I'm kind of anxious to find out, number one, if the Amrita Therapeutics peptide does well, how many others I will come up with during my lifetime. Thank you very much.